Hello everyone, it is Christine here and I am back to finish off my Roxy Journal of Stitchery, the container that I have made fabric and slow stitch, inspired by a beautiful poem called Wild Fruit by the wonderful Mary Walker, and I'll link to Mary Walker below, but she has so kindly allowed me to use her poem as inspiration. I'll also give you an update on my dad, who I spoke about in the last video, and thank you so very much for all of your amazingly kind wishes and for thinking about Dad, because I think it makes a difference. So since the last episode I have finished the stitching, and I'll show you all of the stitching I think at the end once we've done the putting it together, or the final touches of the putting together. And after I'd finished all the stitching, I then proceeded to sew together this side and just do stitching, whip stitching. I'll probably go back and actually do some final tightening stitches. I might even do a decorative like sort of meandering stitch down here, possibly in this thicker crochet that I am using, but it's enough to hold it together for now. And then what I did for my base piece was I got some of the beautiful blanket that I had used on one of my other Roxy Journal of Stitchery pieces, my bag that holds my embroidery hoops, and I'd used this beautiful blanket that I got in Alpine, Victoria, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to use that, because then these two pieces would kind of go with each other in the craft room. Funniest thing, just before when I came up and to look at them, I discovered that the embroidery hoop fits perfectly on the top of this. It's like they were kind of made for each other, but they'll probably sit separately from each other. But if I ever did want to sort of display this nicely, I could just sort of have it sitting within the basket. But they're each kind of beautiful in their own way. So what I did was I worked out what sort of circle I needed. I used a plate, and I probably actually ended up cutting it a tiny bit too big. I probably should have cut on the inside of where I drew around, but I cut out 2 pieces of the blanket and a piece of the thinner felt. I'm just having a look where I've got a piece of the thinner felt. So it's like a more industrial felt, but it's a thin one, not like the one that I used to do the structuring around here, which is a much thicker one. And someone was asking if I thought it would be like a car sort of felt. I think it probably would be used for those sorts of applications. It's got quite a bit of, so that's what I used to create the structure around the walls of the container. But for the base, I was happy for it to be a bit softer, because it's always just going to be sitting on the ground. So I used some of this thinner felt, which you could just use a regular sort of craft felt. Don't use your special felt. And then I cut 2 circles of the wool. And in fact, the circles of the wool I left slightly larger. I trimmed down the grey felt in the middle. And what I did was then sandwich the grey felt between the 2 pieces, the 2 circles of the wool blanket. And then I stitched all around that before it was on the container with blanket stitch. So the inner grey felt was fully enclosed by the blanket, and it gave a really nice edge to the blanket that was really secure. And then I proceeded to then stitch around the outside all the way around, again just with this time with a whip stitch, so catching the sort of the blanket stitch, but stitching all of that on. Now what I discovered when I did that was it was still a little bit puffy in the middle, and that's when I discovered that I'd probably left it a tiny bit too big. But I always like to think that there's no mistakes in slow stitch. There's just things that prompt us to come up with new design elements, and sometimes it's those little redirections that can create really lovely accents to our pieces. Well, that's what I tell myself. And that's what I decided to do here. So because I needed to kind of take up a bit of the slack in the base, what I've done, and I've started it, but I'll do the rest with you so you can see how it works. I've then come back around a second time and picked up some more of the blanket and stitched it. So it's almost now made it a little bit, even a little bit stronger at the side. And the nice thing is it's now made it even a bit more visible when it's sitting there, that I can see a little bit of these blanket colours, which I think ties in beautifully, particularly bringing in this piece, which actually has quite a lot of these colours, but then bringing in the darker blues and the whites and the lighter blues. So I think it actually all comes together, even though if you just looked at that in isolation, you might kind of go, oh, does that go? But yeah, really, I think it does go well. So what I'll show you and what we'll finish off together is how I am sort of dealing with the slightly floppy base, and just adding another round of stitches to take up that slack and also give a nice little sort of dimensional edge. So just going to start with a little knot tied towards the end. Where was I up to and which direction do I want to go? So I've done that all the way around there, so I'm up to here. So that's where you can see I've got up to with pulling it sort of over, and I'll just continue doing that as I go round. I might secrete through the end of the knot in the inside here, because we won't see it. And so what I'm doing is just catching a bit of my bottom and then coming up so that I'm coming up part way into the area that's already stitched down. And I'll just have to judge it as I go around. By the time I get to the other side, I might not need quite as much of a catch, but we shall see. Got quite a long thread, so I just managed to bang my set of thread drawers next to me. I'm standing up to do this because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get the camera in a good spot. So again, thank you to everyone who's been thinking of my poor dad, who ended up in ICU, intensive care unit, after some side effects from an operation or possibly some pre-existing conditions. We don't yet know exactly what the cause was, but essentially it was all happened after he had what was going to be a simple procedure, but then has ended up in ICU on oxygen, and sort of getting really good care from the lovely staff at the hospital. But it has been a bit of a shock when you kind of think, oh, yep, just going in for what's going to be a straightforward procedure, out the next day, and then a number of days later, or even the day following, end up in ICU, and still a number of days later still be in ICU. Now I'm going to grab a thimble. I don't often wear a thimble, but sometimes. Let's see if it will help me. Normally I'd sort of put it against the desk, but maybe that bit's just, maybe I'm trying to go through the actual lining. Yeah, don't like wearing a thimble. We'll give up on that. We'll just try a different spot, Christine. And sometimes that will work, and if not, I'll use the thread to help me push through. Hasn't been that much of a problem, but I think I might have caught a bit of the inner lining piece. So I went in and I've managed to drop my needle, but we will get there. I went in to see Dad today, and he's definitely doing a lot better than he was on Saturday. He's still got a long way to go. Even though I asked him how he thought he was going, he said about 65%. But I don't think he he's kind of responding like someone at 65%, but he's definitely better than he was. So I'm going to take that as a win. His oxygen levels have improved, and they're hopeful that in coming days he might be out of ICU and back into the general part of the hospital. So they seemed pleased with his progress. But he's still very tired, which obviously will be a factor of the meds, but also the strain on the body. And he's not himself yet. He's managing to eat some food, like he's had some yogurt and some juice. They were giving him pureed vegetables, but he's not loving that. But the fact he's eating something, we'll take that as a win. Oh yeah, they give them custard and he's been eating that. So I can imagine I probably wouldn't love sort of hospital pureed vegetables either. I like my veggies, but I don't know if I'd want the hospital flavoured ones. But the main thing is, yeah, getting the care he needs, getting the medicines and the treatment. They put him on a special mask, but then he's constantly got oxygen as well, coming in through his little sort of nose pipes. Poor thing, he's been getting these sores on his face from the oxygen mask that they put on, but they're looking after all that. So yeah, he was happy to see me, and the good thing was when Mum went in later this afternoon, yeah, he'd remembered that I'd been there, because when I was there he was asking me what day of week it was. So obviously, and when you're in ICU, when he was in the other part of ICU, it was all just like, yeah, walls around him, so you get no sense of day and night. And I think he wasn't, yeah, really with it for a lot of the time that he was in that area, but then they've now moved him down to, it's still in the same ICU unit, but they obviously have some more private rooms, and so this one's a lovely room with it's got a window, so you can look out at the trees and the sky, which is nice. And yeah, it's a little bit more private. It's got a door, although I imagine most of the time the door's probably kept open because the nurses, they've each got a dedicated nurse. He had a lovely male nurse today. All the staff have just been so incredible. So a big shout out to the health professionals out there. You do an amazing job for families, and they've just been so good about keeping Mum up to date on everything, and just so kind when you're in there. Even though the rooms are tiny, they always rush to kind of get a chair, but I was like, no, I've been working this morning. I'm happy to stand up. So Dad was sitting up in the chair, and he'd just had his lunch, I think, or the parts of his lunch that he would eat. But yeah, Mum said by the time she was visiting in the afternoon, by 3 o'clock, he was, yeah, totally ready for another sleep. I imagine he'd even been dozing probably in the chair, but I think he then went back to bed at that point. But fair enough. The body needs rest. So yeah, thank you for your thoughts. It's all, yeah, it does come as a shock, and I know, yeah, most others of you have said that, and yeah, just sending out my love as well to others that are grappling with medical challenges in your family and sort of friendship groups. It's really tough. So I think we can all send our collective love out to those folks. So I've just been sitting downstairs this evening with Alex, and we're just watching a bit of the Tour de France, which is just a nice distraction from it all, and a bit of stitching. And as I was stitching, I was thinking, yeah, it's a bit floppy. What am I going to do? Do I unpick it all? Do I then recut it down? And I thought, nope, I'm going to make it a design feature. So now that we're around here, you can see it's getting quite nice and tight. I think it'll still have a bit of puffiness inside, because although it's actually pretty good, I think. But we've still got to get around a little ways further, so I'll just need to I might even need to go the other way down. No, I can probably do it. I just need to sort of angle my needle up and catch enough of it. As I say, I don't think it matters if it's not totally exactly the same around. The main thing was just not to have it looking floopy. Bit of floop's good, but not too much floop. I think I might be one of the last people finishing my container, but that's good. At least it's given me some lovely, I just had a lovely time. As you'll see, I did quite a bit more stitching after we finished up last time, because I just needed that really calming stitching. Because I ended up letting Dad rest on, Sunday. Mum went in, but I didn't want to, after I'd seen him on Saturday, which Mum, reflects on and says was probably the worst that he had been. So I did see him at his sort of lowest ebb. After I saw him that way, I sort of thought, nah, he probably needs to mainly mainly rest, but I made sure today, even though I was working, I just headed off a bit before lunch and drove down to the hospital and visited with him. But I could even tell then just he was getting quite tired. I'm almost round. So can I get it done with this little bit of thread? Oops. Catching the tulle there from the beaded piece. I think it's going to get challenging, so I might just need to tie off and then get another small bit of thread to finish off. So I'll just secrete the end into the wool. I'll just put it in the sort of into the top layer of the wool and then pull it through, pull it tight, cut it off, and it will just spring back into the wool. Got a nice mug of some hot chocolate here. It's evening time on Monday evening. So where was I up to? I was up to around here, wasn't I? Just having a look around. Might actually be okay. I can probably come back and neaten that up after the fact, but probably here I could do a bit more, but I think that's actually pretty good. So let's have a look at the piece then. Unless we want to do do we want to do the little bit of stitching up here? Do I want to do that in a more, I think I might do something there because I just want to add a bit more strength there. It just feels a bit weak. So what did I do? There's my needle. It's the game that Christine always plays. Where's my needle? Seems to be that game anyway. The only other possibility would be to put a bit of lace or something down there. Just wondering, what have I got? Have I got anything readily available? I do have a lot of laces over my containers over there. Just going to stroll behind myself and just have a little looky. Rifle round back here. I will be back with you in a nearest of moments. Got my cards with really lovely bits and pieces. I wonder this white lace there. If I used a white one, I've got a thinner one here. That's the underside. Where's the top of it? There we go. Let's just get that unwound a little bit. How that would look coming down there. I think it could look quite nice, and then I can reinforce the stitching, but then put this over the top perhaps. The top, would I want it to come over at all? Or, yeah, maybe I'll just cut it with a little bit and then I can secrete that end into the piece. Okay, so then we'll need to change a tack and use a different thread colour. Might use one of my white crochet threads And will that look okay if that's coming through on the inside? Yeah, I think that will be fine because there's some white in there too. So yeah, definitely feeling a lot more positive now that Dad's kind of improving. I think it's hard when you, yeah, when Mum said he'd gone backwards, that was quite worrying to hear. But I imagine that's just part of the body's healing process. A bit of getting worse before you get better. And as Mum and I keep telling each other, and as many of you said as well, it's the best place for him to be right now, so sort of feel safe in that knowledge too. So I think I'll angle this so the little sort of edge is poking over this way. And again, I might just try and sort of secrete a bit of this down in this end. And I will go through to the other side. We'll see how easy this is. It may end up being quite tricky because we are working through, and I don't want to catch the base as I did there. Ouch, ouch. Just managed to poke my finger too. The joys of the finishing. Don't want to put blood on my piece. Then I will, guess I need to look from the inside to make sure I'm kind of, yeah, just coming up within the seam. So apologies if this is a bit painful to watch on the screen, because it is quite a big container by this point in time. So it is just a little bit difficult. And I've unthreaded myself, but at least the needle's a big eye, so it's not tedious like the beading needle. Oops, catching around my beaded pieces though. Oops, come up through there, but that's okay. Not going to get too stressed about that. I wonder if there's any way I can do this without having to go backwards and frontwards. I suppose I do want to be going through it so that I am kind of strengthening the bond at the same time. Just want to stay sort of in, and it's mainly up the top where I wanted to put some strengthening stitches in, so that's where I'll concentrate and, yeah, use the white thread to do that as well. So I'm just popping up through these little holes in the braid, because that way it's not like I'm having to push my needle through the braid itself. Just using the braid design to help me out. But I do want to make sure I'm sort of coming up through that indent through the seam. Yeah, I think this is going to add a nice little dimensional sort of element. And hopefully just sort of make the seam less obvious. Just look like part of the design. And that's the thing with these things, you could just keep adding things. Even as I look at the interior here, I'm thinking I could do some extra little knots just to kind of, yeah, fully make the inside sit a bit flatter. But at the same time, I kind of like the puffiness. Feels nice anyway. Oops, that's come through at a weird angle. We'll just try that again. So these are the joys. It's those finishing touches. In reality, this is something that I kind of need to do at this point anyway, because yeah, I want it to sit into the seam, so I couldn't really do it ahead of time anyway, even if I had have contemplated it. But most of my stitching is emergent. I'm not working to a pre-design. I don't really like. I'm not a big one to follow other people's patterns or anything. I actually like the challenge, I think, of figuring things out. It pleases my brain. I kind of wish I was someone that liked following other patterns, because there are so many fabulous patterns out there. But if I see a pattern, I kind of think, oh, how can I tweak it? It's a bit like cooking as well. I'm a bit the same. I like to make things up. I like to look in the fridge and go, what have we got? What am I going to do with those? What's the weather? What do we feel like? When you're baking, you need to be a bit more scientific, because essentially you're creating a chemical reaction. But even then, the addition of other ingredients and things, as long as you have your basic rising agents, etc., binding agents. So here was where I wanted to do a bit more stitching together, so I might just do that before I anchor the thread down. So I might even just do a few little whip stitches up here. I probably should have ironed my braid before I started stitching it down too, but that's okay. Oops. So these are just whip stitches over the fabric, because again, that's just going to help hold it nicely together, and then we can put our braid over the top. And what I'm thinking I can do here is then just sort of push this down into the seam. So I'm just sort of, pushing that little end bit into the depths of the seam. Oops, I caught that one, but that's okay. Okay, so I think that is pretty good. I think that's, just given a nice element where it kind of then just drags the eye around, and you don't know for sure that that's not just a little design piece. So I will pop through to the back and then tie it off and hide my end in here. So I'll just do a knot first. Do a knot with my thread, and then I'll just feed it under here, pop it out, pull it a bit tighter so it pops back into the fabric like that, and then I can show you the finished piece. So let's go back to the start, and we shall read the poem one last time, because I do so love the poem. So the poem is called Wild Fruit, and it's by Mary Walker from New Zealand. So this panel. Beyond my garden fence, weeds are simply plants. I might rip blackberry from my borders, but I covet its fruit in the wild. So there we are, blackberry, the borders, the beautiful little houses, and then the basket of wonderful, luscious blackberries. Look at them. And then blackberries out in the wild and the wildness. Just, yeah, really love this panel. All the little embroidery there, even just small embroidery into these pieces. Everything's just got little extra embellishments. That was a piece of furnishing fabric. And continuing round to these beautiful blackberries. I just adore this fabric. And lovely little extra stitches in there, little stitching along the top. And then we come round to the next panel. You may not fit where you are, too big for small spaces, too loose for tight boundaries, too loud, too colourful, too new. And so this is the panel that speaks to that. And I just love that this is coming out like a burst of fireworks here. And then I've done, yeah, lots of lovely stitching with gold thread. And then I post last video, I came back with a thinner metallic gold. And did lots more stitching in here. What else have I done on this panel since last time? I think that was the main. Oh, I think I did some stitching down here too. I can't remember if I had done that last time. So that's that panel. And then we come on to our final panel here, which is over the fence, the world is hungry for you. You belong out there. Arch your canes over the gate. Beg the birds to lift you. However you do it, go free. So since last time when we were working on the butterfly, I finished the butterfly. I then put some more gold into the design itself, including on this little boat down here around this little butterfly. Let me give you a closer look at that. And I also did the feather. There were a few stitches I'd done on the feather, but I used a beautiful variegated Sue Spargo Razzle or Dazzle, I forget which, to do this side, and yeah, the blue down this side. I also used my gold thread, my thin one, to do this beautiful little gold work style, but just using a not real gold thread, and I just love how that's turned out. It's just, yeah, it's beautiful, I think, if I do say so myself. Stitched around things like the Explorer in the gold thread as well. I think that was most of the gold work I did. I had to come back and just add some extra stitches into the embroidery, but I think, yeah, I think that was the main extra stitching. Oh yeah, and then I just stitched around these sorts of things. Yeah, there I'd done it, along here, etc. So that is the container. And so, as I'd mentioned last time, I think I'm going to write the poem on here. I might even just, but I think I'll write it by hand because I think that's nice. And then I was thinking I might make a little pocket, even just maybe putting some ribbon across here, which I can just stitch so it's only stitching into the base, just to keep that with the piece. So that is the plan. And I just think it's going to be so wonderful to be able to put things like fabrics, etc. in here. It's just going to be such a useful basket to keep things in. Even when I was coming up from downstairs, I put my 2 phones in there, put my threads, my scissors, my needles, etc. And it was, yeah, really handy to carry. So it might even be a carry around the house container. And as you can see, just by doing that extra bit of stitching, that extra design feature, we've created a nice taut base. So that might just give you an idea if you, like me, ever end up over measuring the size that you need for your base. But I do hope you've enjoyed seeing this project and sticking with me during this project, and most importantly for your friendship, for your kindness, for your thoughts. I just so appreciate those. So thank you for watching. Apologies I haven't replied to anyone's comments yet. I'll get onto that now, but if you are watching this video before I get the chance to reply to your comment, thank you so much for your kindness and for your thoughts. We really, really appreciate them. Bye everyone. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. Bye.